this. You're going to do so good. Don't be nervous.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
All right. I love y'all.
Love you too. Thank you. I was homeless. I was pregnant, and I was at a doctor's appointment. And a lady saw me, and I told her that I was homeless. I had nowhere to go, and she told me about the Love Lady. I got pregnant with my oldest daughter, and then I lost my mom to cancer. I started struggling with mental health. I started being in depression, and I lost my daughter, my oldest daughter. I was with some guys, and they laced my marijuana, and that's when they diagnosed me with schizophrenic and bipolar. I was in the hospital for like 90 days. I met another guy. I didn't have no kind of God. I just was like, I was just completely out of it. And then I got pregnant with my son, and I was homeless again. And I was like, God, I'm tired. I'm tired. Either I'm gonna lose my life, or I'm gonna just get right with you and walk it out.
Both my mom and stepdad were alcoholics and would stay up all hours of the night. When I was 13, I was first introduced to alcohol. My addiction started with self-medicating. It later led on to pills and heavier drugs, and that went on for about 15 years. I knew I needed help, and that's kind of what brought me to Love Lady. When I left, I thought I had it all together. So I left and immediately moved into my own housing and separated kind of myself from Love Lady. So I ended up relapsing. Because of that, I didn't put the things in place that needed to be in place before I left.
I got here May 1st of 2024. I'd been 10 days in the hospital on a psych hold, and then 7 days in an actual psychiatric hospital. And then came here, and I was in there for attempted suicide. I just knew Love Lady was my last shot. I'd had a previous attempt in 2022. I ended up losing my job, went and stayed with my brother for a little while, but just could not pull myself together. So I ended up losing everything I owned. And on the day they came to evict me, I attempted suicide again. And that was the one right before I came to Love Lady.
I would say the biggest challenge a woman has when she comes into Love Lady is to really leave the old life behind her, for one thing, but more importantly, to honestly believe there's a hope and another life. For many of them, they've kind of been told consistently that you're not worth anything, you're not any good for anything. And too often, that's spoken over somebody long enough becomes something they believe.
Scripture tells us without vision, you'll perish. And my mom was such a visionary. The vision that I believe that the Lord has laid upon my heart isn't from, the desire to grow, but more of provision of the women that we have here that we want to help, which is where some of these initiatives that we're trying to accomplish come from.
If you knew Brenda and you know Melinda and Johnny, they do not like to turn anyone away, no matter what. So many families are afflicted directly or indirectly with this disease of addiction and mental illness, and they'll all tell you that it just wreaks havoc. We lost a precious son, Will, to a fentanyl overdose in 2016. And in some ways, that's easier than the other son who has severe, profound psychotic disorders and addiction. It was the end of a chapter for our son Will, but for our son James, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go other than prison, death, or the streets for these people. Our two sons, we went to dozens of programs. I think with just one son, we went to 29 rehabs. I have concluded firmly that Christ-centered programs are the most efficacious. Lovelady checks all the boxes for what the Lord has called me to do.
They're not a threat to the population, then we're going to give them a shot, because right now there's nowhere else, nowhere that we have found that will give someone that opportunity just to come in and to get stabilized, to see if we could get to the other side. When ladies come to the Lovelady Center, there's so many different issues. I know that we're not a fix-all, but I know that when women come into our program, we already are dealing with a vulnerable population, especially if you've got some who are coming off of drugs, and there's those voices where they just want to leave and they want to go get high.
But it probably should come as a surprise to no one the degree of mental illness that we have now. You've got to get them a space where they can kind of settle down. The big challenge with our building here and the way the program has gone, if you're the size of the building, 500 plus women plus children that are in the program, it's impossible for us to get them isolated to the point where they can hear, and us to take them through the process, working with the great doctors at Live Oaks, the Christ Health Center, and the other great doctors that work with us to use the medication to calm down the voices, get them stabilized. And if there are just all sorts of things going on around them, they can't slow down enough to hear.
One particular woman who had been to Lovelady before, loved her dearly. I felt like she was in a drug-induced psychosis when she had come to us. We eventually said we needed to send her to the hospital, so we sent her to one hospital, and they said that there's nothing they could do to help her. Sent her back with nothing, and then we sent her to another hospital, and same thing. We ended up sending her to 4 hospitals. The 4th one discharged her around 10 p.m. at night, and she came back into her room, and the voices taunting her, she decided that she was going to leave. She leaves without any of us knowing, and she goes and walks on the interstate and ends up getting hit by a car and killed. If we could have just kept her safe for 30 days, if the hospital would have hospitalized her for 30 days, I think we'd be, I see so many women who come in who after 30, 45 days, they're not the same. It takes those 30, 45 days to get to the not the same, and to where they start to transform, and you start to see who God created them to be, and it takes time. I feel like we lose women who they walk back out to the streets, and I know that they're not safe there either, and so if we had that separate place, and we have wonderful, beautiful partners that can provide the medical treatment, we just need to provide the place for stability. When they come into the program, it again, depending on where they're coming from, there is a lot to sort through.
So now all of a sudden now it's, you've completed this program, you've got this great hopes on how you move forward, but then you start to realize, so how do I put a roof over my head? How do I put food on the table? How do I get a job that pays a decent wage? How do I get to that job if I get it? And what do I do with my child during that time so I can be at work and do what I'm supposed to do? So we kept seeing these kind of problems mount up. And it was almost like God said, well, it's kind of time for next steps.
We need to continue to empower and to equip them. We need next steps. We need to help them develop their next steps.
was a woman to graduate. She'd leave. We had great hopes for them, and it wouldn't be long before that phone would ring, and what we would hear is, I want to come home.
We started noticing the depth of the need when we had over 150 graduates living in the center. Every time we would have a graduation, 70 to 80% of the grads were staying, and it's because community is important. Our grads know that. They value the accountability.
So the idea is, okay, to acquire apartment complexes close to where we are. They won't be renting their apartments, they'll be in the program. And we can start them out with program fees that are very reasonable. And then over an 18-month process, we'll slowly graduate those fees up. But at the same time, we'll be helping them reestablish their credit, take financial literacy courses, learn how to budget, get a job. And that's one of the first prerequisites of getting into this program is to get some sort of job so you start your income, but then learn how to start advancing in that job and hopefully move to a career.
It is definitely life or death. I've seen it. And none of this was just created because we're like, let's find something else to do because we've got plenty to do. It came from, wait a minute, she might would have lived if she had these tools, if she had this opportunity. If these needs, if these things can't be met, then more women are going to die. More children are going to go into foster care. And that's not okay.
I think we average now almost 7 applications a day, every day. Just being able to maximize everything we do is critical to meet the needs of those people. So the need is obviously great. If you went into our intake department now, you'd see the waiting list.
I walked in one day and I was looking at the board behind me and I noticed a young lady's name, and I knew that this young lady had died of a drug overdose just a couple days before. I pulled one of our intake specialists aside and I said, hey, this woman's not going to be joining us. But that day I understood just what we do, how important it is, that oftentimes it really is life and death.
There's no way to understand Love Lady unless you come and see it.
I would urge everyone to visit here. What you'll see when you come through the door, that there are certain ladies that are happy to share their stories. It'll rip your heart out. But you also see the transformation.
So I came back to Love Lady. And I've been walking it out. I completely shut off everything that was keeping me away from God. I started fasting. I've been fasting since May. I fast secular music. I fast Facebook. I fast people, places, things, anything that was going to keep me away from God. If you take care of your mental health, I feel like you can take care of life. I'm in Brenda's Courtyard, and I love it. It feels good to get up in my own place, pray, get my kids ready for school, cook dinner, and all the things, and just be out of that facility mode, you know? You still stay connected. Go to church, go to work, you go home to your own place, and it's time to heal and be peaceful and celebrate it, really. So I'm gonna call it Celebration Apartment.
So when I came back through the program 2 years ago, that's when I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do it different this time. I stayed in Love Lady housing for about a year and a half. I was thinking about moving back to Atlanta, getting back into kind of corporate type of role. And Miss Beverly said, I may have something for you. And she called me about 2 weeks later and said she had a position for me at Portraits of Hope. You know, I've been able to meet a lot of different people through Portraits of Hope. And one thing that has been pleasantly surprising to me is that people don't judge me because of what I've been through. I feel like addiction kind of touches people in all different kinds of ways. This is what I've been through, but that's not who I am now. And God has redeemed me and He can redeem you too. People are not going to look down on you, but you just can't be afraid to take that next step. One of the things is learning how to live sober on your own. And having the Love Lady Center housing allows you to do that, but with still a safety net. You still have the support and the community and the love. It has really changed my life that much because there's nothing more important than knowing Jesus.
They gave me the chance to be still and know God again. The lives I've seen turned around, I can speak of my group with Overflow and the ones I was down there with on phase 1 of how lost and angry some of us were, and watching them go through and graduate this program and be so happy. I mean, they've just changed so many lives. People, they've gotten their children back. It's amazing. I'm very happy. I'm not losing sleep. I'm not thinking about harming myself. The Love Lady is what gave me the chance to turn my life around to do that. I've made some really good friends I would have never thought I would have made in a million years. You can have the worst day ever, and there's always going to be somebody to just give you a hug and say I love you and encourage you, whether it be a staff member, a client, a volunteer. And we get constant love, and that helps your mental health so much. Seeing that verse, to be still and know that I'm God, I knew I was where I belonged, that I was with family, and that's how I've been treated here.
I was called unworthy. I was called a failure, but I am called worthy. I am called favored. I am called blessed. I am called chosen. And I am called all the things that God has appointed me to be called.